love always wins, no matter what. Even when they're gone, there's still that love there to be grateful for that you had.
Valerie Bertinelli has established herself as an accomplished actress and a warm presence on the Food Network. However, behind the scenes, she experienced a complicated love story with the legendary rock musician Eddie Van Halen. But then, their bond remained after they were divorced. Sadly, Eddie died. Van lost her soulmate and has since kept mute about her feelings. But now, she has broken her silence. What has she revealed? Let's find out. The love story. Valerie Bertinelli and Eddie Van Halen have had one of the most beautiful love stories in the history of humanity. Their story began in the summer of 1980, when Valerie, a rising actress, had just finished filming another season of One Day at a Time. Her brothers had come to support and beg her to take them backstage to the band's concert in Shreveport, Louisiana, since they were big fans of Van Halen. As of then, Valerie knew she also needed to let off some steam after a long day at work, so she agreed to take them and tag along as well. She never knew that night would change her entire life. When they got backstage, Valerie noticed that the entire place was filled with blaring amps, fans, and the lingering haze of rock and roll chaos. However, in the middle of all that drama, she met Eddie Van. Before she reached the venue, Valerie had brought M&Ms as a light-hearted gesture for Eddie. However, when he walked in, her gift was not what caught his attention. Everyone standing around them was shocked at how these two easily connected. Initially, Eddie was a very shy person, even though he was a legendary guitarist. On the other hand, Valerie was seen as the American sweetheart. During several interviews, she stated that she never expected to feel such a sudden pull to a rock star who came from a completely different world. But it didn't matter how any of them felt, because as soon as they met, something clicked. According to Valerie, she was extremely nervous because they were from two very different worlds, but that didn't matter. Somehow, they understood and got to know each other. To these two, that night was not just another concert after party. It was the beginning of something beautiful that would last for decades. 4 months after these two beautiful people met, they got engaged. Eddie proposed on New Year's Eve of 1980. To everyone else, the decision was a very fast one, and it was incredibly bold. However, to Eddie and Valerie, it was the best decision, and it just felt right. They got married on the 11th of April, 1981. Their wedding took place in a very beautiful church called St. Paul the Apostle Church in Westwood, California. The ceremony was simply beautiful. Valerie wore a custom-made dress, while Eddie, who came a bit late, had a classic rock star fashion one. The ceremony was filled with love and nerves. By the time they got married, their love story was the talk of the town, and it soon made headlines. However, behind those smiling faces and beautiful hearts were two young people who were trying desperately to hold on to each other despite their growing fame. After their marriage, Eddie became very successful, and Valerie soon started living on tour buses, attending extremely loud rehearsals, and then navigating the rock scene. She accomplished all this while still advancing her career. During an interview, she shared how she would wait in those hot rooms alone during Eddie's long tours. In that hotel room, she tried to stay connected to Eddie while still coping with the loneliness she felt in his world. Despite the chaos that they went through, the duo still managed to find a way to make their relationship work. And in 1991, they gave birth to their son, Wolfgang Van Halen. After Wolfgang's birth, his parents made him the very center of their universe. They adored him so much that Eddie called him his greatest pride, and Valerie would often say that he was the best part of her relationship with Eddie. For a while, it seemed like the family was truly flourishing, as their lives were filled with red carpets and beautiful family moments. However, beneath the polished appearance, they were battling with issues that fame could not resolve. A complicated marriage. On paper, Eddie Van Halen was the perfect man, but behind the scenes, he was battling with alcohol and substance addictions. The demons he faced were so many that he sometimes found it extremely difficult to escape from them. This situation was alien to Valerie, who had grown up in a structured household. She struggled to get to the position she did, and sometimes she believed that her husband's addictions would interfere with her ability to maintain a clear image for her career. In her memoir, she mentioned that when she was with him, she constantly had to choose between helping him and preserving herself. She knew she wasn't perfect, but at least she had tried to help him severely and, in the process, lost herself. This situation was quite obvious to the public, because when Valerie was busy juggling the role of raising Wolfgang and starring in TV shows, Eddie was coming in and out of rehab. It got so bad that on some nights she returned home and met only silence. It's a bit easier when a couple is still fighting. It means there is still care and a need to stay together. However, in those silent nights, void of arguments, Valerie felt as though the love they had for each other had died. However, it didn't die. It was just buried under so much frustration, sadness, and distance. Regardless of the trials they seemed to be passing through, many people still saw everything they did as a couple's goals, even though behind the scenes, none of them knew how to heal from the emotional wounds they had inflicted on each other. In the relationship, Valerie consistently played the role of a peacekeeper. She went to great lengths to smooth over Eddie's behavior and cover for his struggles. She did all this because she desperately wanted to maintain that illusion of normalcy for their son. She did not want Wolfgang to grow up with the knowledge that the family he had thought to be almost perfect was filled with betrayal, lies, and mistrust. While trying to balance all of these, Valerie's emotional bandwidth soon became stretched too thin. Before anyone knew what was happening, the pressure of balancing a career, a child, and a marriage toll on her. After 2 decades had passed, the couple separated. Ironically, it wasn't what most people would have expected. It wasn't the explosive kind of separation. It was a quiet, worn-down, and sadness-filled separation that most times threatened to push them both into depression. According to Valerie, she had to leave him because she had reached a point where she could no longer work on fixing him. It was time to start working on fixing herself. They finalized their divorce in 2007. Afterward, they agreed that it was best to remain close for Wolfgang's sake. Their respect for each other didn't need to disappear just because their marriage was over. The love for their son drove this duo to work diligently in redefining their relationship. They became co-parents, doing so with sincere respect and affection for their child. Their respect for each other continued when Eddie was diagnosed with cancer. Valerie did not for a second leave his side. She stayed there not as a wife, but as a friend who still loved him. She held his hand throughout all his treatments and even traveled with him to Germany for his specialized treatment. Their unbreakable bond after divorce. Valerie and Eddie showed the world a picture they had not seen in a very long time. The world was surprised at how 2 people who were once madly in love with each other but eventually had to go their separate ways could put their differences aside to ensure their son was well taken care of. These 2 were highly dedicated to raising their son together, prioritizing him above all else. Even when the young man wanted to pursue a music career, his parents supported him wholeheartedly. They were often seen at his concerts and public appearances. They appeared like 2 soldiers who had a united and strong front to protect their child. This kept their family strong and proved to the world that love and respect between 2 couples who had divorced could remain. It was obvious to everyone that these 2 were no longer romantically involved. However, they were often seen in public meetings, which suggested that their bond was not entirely destroyed. Even though they attended events alone and leave alone, they did manage to be very courteous with each other. However, they were only seen in joint appearances when the event involved their son, Wolfgang. They would show up as a family, joining hands and voices to support and help him see the unity between them, even though they were no longer a couple. This was an extremely good lesson for Wolfgang. From a young age, he saw that 2 people could be apart, but yet so united for the right cause. It made him realize that hate and anger were emotions that humans could deal with if they truly wanted to. Wolfgang was able to see the bond between his parents was when his father, Eddie Van Halen, fell critically sick with cancer. Before this, Valerie and Eddie had faced many challenges. It would have been perfectly normal if Valerie had chosen not to stand by his side through such difficulty. However, Wolfgang saw how his mother stood by his father's side through this. She kept visiting him during his treatments and even supported him emotionally. Wolfgang also saw that this care was reciprocated by Eddie. He gifted her with a pendant-sized gold bar while he was still undergoing treatment in Germany. Even though no note was attached to this gift, it was a heartfelt gesture that spoke volumes about the affection they had for each other. In his later years, Eddie made sure to recognize how much Valerie meant to him. He often shared his appreciation for all she had done and how she had taken care of him. Even after their separation, he went out of his way to show his love for her. Whenever he reminisced about their time together, his words carried warmth, and others could see that Valerie often replied with the same kindness. This made people wonder if these two were madly in love with each other. But then, why did they have to break up and go their separate ways? During interviews, Valerie explained that the love they shared for each other was unlike any other kind of love. She mentioned that it was much more than a romantic connection. According to her, she loved him more than she could express, and she always treasured the bond and respect they shared. This made it clear to everyone that their love transcended the borders of marriage for something much more significant. Eddie's final days. Eddie Van Halen's health began to decline in the 1990s due to cancer. This was after multiple surgeries and treatments. Even with all the surgical treatments, in 2019, the cancer began to spread to very significant areas of his body. The cancer spread to his throat, brain, and other vital organs in his body. Still, Eddie did not stop the treatment and continued his treatment. But it seemed that the more he tried to get better treatment, the more his health worsened, and soon it became clear that his time was limited. This news was truly devastating to Valerie and Wolfgang because it was obvious that they were losing their family. Despite the crippling final phase, Valerie and Wolfgang were extremely devastated and felt hopeless. However, they did not stop staying by Eddie's side. Valerie ignored the emotional weight that the situation brought to her and still stood by his side as his source of strength. She spent almost every waking moment with Eddie and her son, wanting to get the little moments that she could with them before Eddie would leave them finally. In those moments, she would find immense comfort in her family, and for a brief moment, everything would seem to disappear, leaving her family as the only thing that made sense. During an interview, Valerie shared a moment that she believed would be the end of it all. Wolfgang had alerted her to rush down to the hospital because Eddie was close to his end. When Valerie got the information, she felt numb and stood still, unable to comprehend what had just been said. She had anticipated a day like this, but she hadn't taken into consideration how she would feel when it happened. As a result, she was unsure how to react. After a few seconds of silence, reality dawned on her, and she rushed to the hospital to be with her beloved. The final moments she shared with him were very intimate, filled with love and respect. The same things had been so evident throughout their lives. In the room where Eddie passed away, Valerie and Wolfgang stood and watched as life left the body of a man that they had come to love respectfully. Before he died, he left them with extremely powerful words that they would hold on to forever. "I love you." These were his final words to them, but as simple as it was, they spoke volumes and reminded them of the connection and enduring love they had shared as a family for so many years. The scene before their eyes threatened to break them into different pieces, but Valerie stood strong for Wolfgang, who could not help but weep. She eventually moved him into a different room, reminding him of how they spent their last moments with Eddie, talking about the past and laughing through the tears that fell on their faces. Later, Valerie reflected on that bittersweet moment, saying that they had laughed and it was so much better than crying. This showed everyone how much she valued their time together and how much they healed through their shared memories. Through it all, Valerie remained steadfast in her strength. She managed her emotions, knowing she needed to be strong for Wolfgang. Her support and love for their son showed the world how much she valued their connection until the very end. Through all the pain, Valerie's emotional strength never wavered. she navigated the complexities of their past with grace and continued to show Eddie love and care. Her quiet but unwavering support was a reflection of the depth of their connection, which remained intact until the very end. Valerie breaks her silence. Eddie Van Halen passed away in October 2020. The world lost a rock legend. However, to Valerie, she did not just lose a legend, she lost her soulmate. Even though their 26-year marriage ended in 2007, the duo ensured that their bond was still unbreakable. After his death, Valerie wrote a heartfelt tribute that reminded people of the connection they had shared. In a very heartfelt post, she shared a family photo from 1981, which was the same year they met. In that tribute, she wrote, "40 years ago, my life changed forever when I met you. You gave me the one true light in my life, our son, Wolfgang." She also went on to express her gratitude for being able to stand by his side during his last days on Earth, and she wrote that she and her son were able to hold him in his last moments and that they would see each other again in their next life. After this post was published, it resonated deeply with fans and generated significant support from people. To them, this tribute was not just a personal reflection, but it was Valerie's way of publicly acknowledging that they had shared a deep history and that their love would endure beyond marriage. Valerie didn't shy away from talking about her grief during that period. Even when she was on live stream, she openly discussed how complex their relationship was, acknowledging that they both had their fair share of challenges and beautiful moments. When asked if she regretted spending so much time with him when he was dying, she said no. According to her, grief was a gift that allows one to remember the best of a person. Valerie's situation was relatable to many people, and soon her story became a source of inspiration for others who had experienced similar losses. Wolfgang Van Halen's role and response. After Eddie's death, Wolfgang has been doing his best to carry on his father's legacy. He continued in the singing industry, and his debut single, "Distance," fully expressed the grief he was feeling. It became his heartfelt tribute to Eddie. Wolfgang did not only stop here, though, he ensured that he honored his father even during his live performances. He is constantly pointing to the sky at the end of each of his concerts, and this is a very silent salute to his father for the influence he had on his life and music. Valerie has not been found wanting in her support for Wolfgang's music career. She consistently attends his concerts and is always offering him the encouragement and words of affirmation he needs to continue prospering. During her interviews, she expressed that she takes great pride in Wolfgang's accomplishments and often talks about how much she loves his kindness and respect towards others. Together, these two continue to celebrate Eddie's legacy and ensure that the contributions he made to music are never forgotten, as they will also never forget the love he had for his family. Their shared memories continue to keep his spirit alive and remind the world of the power of family and love. Grieving in public. Valerie has been very open about her grief in her tributes and words. However, one of the acts that truly shocked people was a black and white photo she shared on Instagram. This picture was of Eddie holding Wolfgang, their son, and she captioned it with 2 white hearts. Soon, people began to interpret this as her remembering the one man who had given her the one true light in her life, her son, Wolfgang. Valerie showed her vulnerability to the public, and even during live Instagram sessions, she still managed to let the people know how strong their bond was. During these conversations, she would gladly share her thoughts on the complexities of grief. She would speak on how she sometimes experienced a bittersweet feeling of loss, love, and longing. Seeing as she did not enjoy seeing him suffer, people believed that when he died, she was a bit glad that at least now he was resting. However, soon, it dawned on her that she was missing him terribly, and this only went the long way to cause her heart to bleed the more. However, people loved how she was true to her emotions and communicated them flawlessly to her fans and the media. Many people admired her courage, and they began to find strength in her words. They felt like they could understand her pain, and she could understand theirs. This also made many people feel as though she had given them the permission needed to grieve in their unique way. After the initial mourning period, Valerie was still mourning the death of Eddie and his memory. She posted pictures and reflections on social media, and each one was a tribute to the man who had captured her heart. What are your opinions? Did Valerie do the right thing by mourning Eddie in public, or would it have been better if she had done it privately? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If this story moved you, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more heartfelt journeys just like this one.